Best Friends Video Games.
Video games.
Hey.
Right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to BFVG's third inaugural podcast. What it's called. Right. On our list of things to talk about today, our main subject area is going to be how we pay for our games, the systems and processes in which we pay for our games, whether they be subscription, one-off payment, whether they're free-to-play, etc., and probably lead on to a few different topics along the way. Today joining me, hi, I'm Dean, by the way, fingers free. Today joining me is our good friend James.
Hello, Theris one away.
That's the one. Hi, James. We have Rich.
Hey.
Hi,
Helios
Rich.
Rain, I'm Helios Rain. Hello.
That's Rain. I can't remember your tags, guys. I'm really sorry. And we also have our
Thanks,
friend
fingers.
Alex. Anytime, mate. We also have Alex. You all right, Alex?
Over here.
Hi. He doesn't have a tag. He just uses Alex.
He's the brave one.
He's not ashamed of his gaming. Right.
Credential.
So, guys, there's a reason that we wanted to talk about this, and the reason that it's come up during the last couple of weeks, and that's because of the news recently that Diablo 3 is getting rid of their auction house. I don't really know a lot about this, so James, maybe you could enlighten us about what exactly that means.
Yeah, well, Diablo 3, I'm sure everyone knows basically how it works. Top-down adventuring, click, get lots of loot, kill lots of monsters sort of deal. What was new to the third installment is this auction house deal where basically people could trade with each other across different playthroughs their like top loot in order for either to trade directly for equivalent loot or loot that was more useful for their character, or even for real money, which proved to be a bit problematic, and in-game currency as well.
There was a growing kind of dispute with like really hardcore players that the fact that you could buy loot, whether using in-game currency or actual money, kind of broke the kind of flow of the game. The idea that some people could just buy loot rather than actually playing the game to get it.
Okay.
And so
the way I understand it, sorry, was it also if it was for real money, didn't Diablo, the makers take a cut of that? Is that how? Was there a cut being taken?
Absolutely, yeah. Blizzard were making an absolute mint off it on every transaction. For sure.
Yeah. What they stated in their official announcement, there's one quote that kind of sticks in mind, is that whole process of the auction house, it ultimately undermined the core gameplay, which was to kill monsters and get cool loot. There's two sides to that, but I guess if you do have a superpowered weapon or armor, that means you're able to kill a lot of things a lot quicker or survive against the bigger bosses for a lot longer, then how much enjoyment are you really getting from it? It's less of a skill thing and more of a, how deep is your wallet kind of game.
Well, I suppose the argument was that if you're new to the game and felt too far behind, you could make that purchase yourself, couldn't you? I suppose you'd go out your way to kind of make the gameplay easier in some respects. Is that not? Or was that not the main point of it originally?
I mean, I haven't played it, but it seems to me like they were trying to make it fit in with the free-to-play crowd, which I guess we'll get onto a bit later. But basically, Blizzard wanted it to be accessible to people who were used to having an experience where they could choose to either play the game for a certain number of hours and get like in-game play rewards, or just kind of skip that grind and go straight to the good stuff. But I guess that kind of rankled with people who played Diablo 1 and 2 and wanted, enjoyed the feeling of working for the best loot and the best gear.
Yeah, because all of the loot is basically instanced and random. There's no like one boss you beat in order to get a particular weapon or armor necessarily. then some people who wanted specific things, it was the way for them in order to get that, rather than have to grind through basically an infinite number of monsters in order to get the right leveled and right gear that they wanted.
I mean, what's
So
this? Sorry, Rich. Sorry, carry on, mate.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's not like, say, a game like Torchlight 2, where you get the gold drops and you build up a certain amount of gold, and then you go back to the town, and then you can buy for definite a certain weapon which you've had your eye on. It's not like that in Diablo 3. Then
no,
there's an in-game shop.
There are in-game merchants and that sort of thing, but they never sell the rare items, the special named ones. It's all a high-level shield that's got a variety of enchants and things on it, but there's nothing for the people who wanted something specific, or an item with a specific enchant on it, whether it was named or not. It had that bonus to it, but then the flip side to that is it made it a lot easier and a lot, in a way, I guess, less fun for most people.
I mean, I think this comes, this news that they're closing the auction house, it comes on the back of the PlayStation 3 launch, doesn't it? Where they announced that won't be part of the PlayStation 3 version of the game.
And 360 as well.
And for the 360 as well.
Okay, so they decided to roll it out on PC as well.
They rolled it out, all versions again, without this real money auction house. I mean, I'm just wondering whether we think that that's an admission that it's failed. It hasn't really made them a lot of money. People have chosen to just play the game and just get what they find.
So was this a cynical move by developers just to try and make more money, or was there an actual belief that it would improve people's gaming experience? I mean, at the end of the day, they are a business. They have to run a business. Was it a case of let's ensure this to make more money? Was that the move behind the auction house in the first place? I
think it was, but
what they said is that.
Go on, sorry.
Sorry, I mean, again, this is just straight from their official statement. So take it or leave it, whether it's true or not. But they said the driving goal in the first place was to provide a convenient and secure system for trades, which makes sense. If people may want to trade particular items, particularly with their friends, if they're not playing on the same playthrough. But they've changed their mind about that. For whatever.
Yeah.
This is
they have rebalanced it. I was going to say they have rebalanced it now, haven't they? Because of because now they've removed the real money auction house. They've made it so in the game you get better drops now. So it begs the question: was it needed in the first place?
I think this comes down to the wider question of how do we feel about the idea of in-game transactions. I personally, I don't have a problem with them. I think certain games and certain people actually are willing to spend money if they like a game so much and they want this thing to spend money on it. That's fine. That's their choice. But in some instances, maybe it feels like the companies are doing this. They're shoving it kind of down your throat, making it there so you have to make in-game transactions for real money to kind of get the full experience from the game.
I guess the most obvious form of that, although I hesitate to call them games, like the Facebook games. Farmville and that sort of thing, where you start out and you're perfectly capable of doing a lot, and then it immediately crashes to a halt, and you've got to wait for days in order to recharge your energy or whatever, unless you pay £5 for 1,000 coins that allow you to do this, this, and this. And so that at the one side of things, that's where in-game purchases define the game, and if you don't do them, you're basically wasting your time. But then, as you say, Dean, there are other ones that allow you to do it much better, and it doesn't affect the game really, and it's there for people who want it.
The thing about that is that a lot of it depends on how much money you think is a justifiable amount to spend on video games, and the games you're talking about, James, are designed for people who don't typically play a lot of video games, and spending £5 a month is nothing compared to probably the amount of money that we either paid ourselves or when we were younger got our parents to pay on PS2 games or PC games or whatever. I mean, it's weird the way the price of games has changed over time to me. I definitely remember when I was about 15, paying £40 for a PS2 game just seemed like the sort of thing that that was that was the standard. That's what you paid for a game. You paid 40 quid, and these
About
days
30 quid for a PC.
yeah,
Yeah.
and these days
These days.
it's so flexible these days when you look at like Steam sales, and some things are going for 2 quid, some games are going for 30 quid, some games are going for more. It's a different kind of market these days, and there are different types of gamers.
No, definitely. I think the problem I have personally with the games that James mentioned, the Facebook games, the Farmvilles, etc., is the fact that you get to a point, you spend £5 to get you up to the next stage, but then to get to the stage after that, you've got to spend £6, £7. There seems to be a snowballing effect that kind of draws you in to make you spend more.
And
Did
because
anyone hear about the way they've done it with the new Plants vs Zombies?
Completely free to play, isn't it? Or
Well, that's the thing. In the new Plants vs Zombies, they've got kind of a Super Mario 3 style world map where you go from level to level, and you complete each one is a little standard Plants vs Zombies challenge. And once you got through all of those, there's a door to unlock the next world. And in order to unlock that door, you need stars. But you can only get stars by completing special challenges, and those challenges don't appear until you've got to that door. So they then ask you to go back and replay levels that you've already played in order to
so you've got the choice between grind or pay a few pounds to get to the next bit.
And it seems especially like cynical and money grabbing because you don't get the chance to compete for those. They're basically like in-game achievements that earn you credit to the next world. You don't get to earn those until you've already advanced far enough to know that you need to pay money.
So that seems really cynical. I'd much prefer it if they're honest and said, "Look, you can either spend this far to get through this door or not." Do you know what I mean? As opposed to that seems really cynical.
Yeah, it seems really. I don't know. On the one hand, it does come down to the same thing. You know, what's more important to you? Is it your time or your money?
Yeah. If we think of games as hobbies of what you do, you're absolutely right that it's entirely up to you what you pay for it. You know, you can have a inexpensive hobby that doesn't take up a lot of your time, but if you're going to do something like, I don't know, skydiving or whatever, that's going to cost you. But if you're getting that level of enjoyment out of it, you know, well done, good luck to you.
Well, I think it's also going to be a personal choice thing.
Yeah.
I think that there are certain situations whereby you feel like you have to spend the money, you know. If you get to a point that I've never actually knew that's how Plants vs Zombies 2 was done. Genuinely, and if I started playing that game and got to that point, I would be personally pissed off that I'd got to that point and then told that to, you know.
But that's in the context of the iPad App Store. You know, we don't know. Maybe you'd assume they do the same thing for PC, but that's like alongside all these other games that are available on iPhone and iPad. And they won't look that out of place there because that's kind of standard. I mean, it's the same for I think Kingdom Rush, which is a big.
Angry Birds has gone that way as well.
Angry Birds as well, yeah.
Because Angry Birds started, you would just play through, and there were hard challenges and that sort of thing, but you didn't pay. And once you bought it, you didn't pay any more. Then they started releasing the expansions, which obviously you pay for because they're more levels and they want the money that they've recouped from developing it. But there were also in-game purchases, like basically a cheat that you could just skip a level. I think, what was it called, like the Mighty Eagle or something? That you would pay and you'd get like 3 of them to be able to use at your will, but it still cost you like, you know, £5.
I can't blame them for trying to make money out of their game, but what really sticks in my craw is that they're being dishonest with the consumer. They're being dishonest with the person they're trying to get money out of, trying to mislead them.
I think trying to tell you when you get to a certain point you spend money, I think, is a bit of a joke. Sorry, Rich.
I mean, I was just going to say, what about things like Day 1 DLC and season passes? They release a game, say, like Mass Effect or like Borderlands 2, and a lot of people feel the need to go and buy the Day 1 DLC or the season pass in order to feel that they're getting the full experience out of the game. It's like that the game is released almost completed, but not quite, and that to get the full game, you actually have to pay a little bit extra.
This is something I've come across a few times, actually, about people. There's a big debate, isn't there, at the minute, about DLCs.
Rich, I can give you an even better example. There's a game from last year called Asura's Wrath, which is a Japanese there were a lot of quick time events in it, and otherwise it was kind of like 3D brawler sort of thing. And Capcom actually put the ending of the game into a like £5 or £6 DLC pack.
No.
If you, I mean, the in-game, the full like game you got on a disc, it had an ending, but it seemed kind of incomplete. And
What did they put? What when they originally released the game? There was straight away a choice to buy this.
I
Or did
don't know
that
if it
come
was,
later?
I don't know if it was day one. I can't be certain about that. It's probably not too hard to find out. And I rented the Zero's Wrath, and therefore felt okay about paying £7 or whatever it was for the DLC. And I have to say, the DLC, like it was already a good game, and the DLC was that much better. But it did still feel kind of dirty that they'd held that out. They'd held gamers to ransom to see the ending of the game they played.
That's.
I mean,
this is what they did in Mass Effect 3. You know, I know people get really, really passionate about Mass Effect 3 and they have strong opinions, especially about the ending. But this is not the ending I'm talking about here. This is the nature of this day one DLC which they had. And basically, if you pay this extra DLC, you get an extra mission and a new crew member, a Prothean called Javik. Now, of course, Prothean.
Spoiler alert, by the way, guys. Spoiler alert.
Yes, spoiler alert. But basically, he's really important to the whole series of games. Not just him, but his whole races. So excluding a character from a very important race from a game and only making him available to those that pay extra, it sort of makes me a bit uncomfortable. It makes me feel like, well, you know, they could have included that at no extra cost, because they would have had to have made that mission pretty much at the same time that they were programming all the other missions, putting the resources together. So it's not costing them any more to make this extra mission, and yet they're monetizing it. And
we all know why, right? It's because they're worried about used games. They're worried about people taking. It's always talked about in games journalism about GameStop, the American store, and we have our equivalents in the UK in the shrinking like Game and Game Station stores. They're worried about people buying a game new, trading it in, and other people picking up that copy, and all the while the people who have paid to make the game aren't getting any money for those second-hand copies. And what they want to do is they want you to pick up the first-hand copy so that you'll get the pre-order bonus, or in this case, access to DLC. Actually, that wasn't the case with Mass Effect, was it? I'm talking about.
Well,
but that's one of the big things that's at play in this thing in general.
If DLC is, for the most part, is only download, the Oblivion, they released the Oblivion DLC as actual hard copies, didn't they? Which could have been traded and rented and that sort of thing. But day one DLC, Rome 2, Total War. They released the Greek city-states as a, pre-order now and get that DLC as soon as you start playing the game, on day of release. Which, if you've played the first Rome game, you get all the races, and then they add expansions later for different time periods, and but it just smacks of. Like, why couldn't they have included that? I completely agree with Rich. Why couldn't they have included that at the beginning?
James, is that not their way of ensuring that they get this, trying to ensure that they get the sales that they want? Because this game's costing millions of pounds to make. They need people to put money into it early as possible to recoup some of that money. Is that not what they're just trying to do with that? Or?
That may be what they're trying to do, but there are better ways and less. Cynical, again, I guess, ways of doing it. Like, if you DLC, great. There are some excellent DLC that add a heck of a lot to the game. The Bethesda ones, I would say that they produce some of the most game-changing DLC. Like, whole new campaigns, whole new worlds that,
It feels like a whole new aspect to the game. It feels big enough that it's worthy of paying a bit more for an expansion.
Yeah. But at the same time, for the Hearthfire DLC for Skyrim, that was about £5, I think, when it first came out, because it didn't add a huge amount, and they acknowledged that. DLC that is priced according to its worth rather than bean counters at the game company trying to grab an extra buck.
The stuff we're talking about, it's always struck me as a sign of big game publishers feeling terrified the products they're spinning aren't going to make a profit. So they're spending so much money on them these days and still making losses. Like the stat that sticks in my mind is Square Enix said that Tomb Raider and Hitman sold almost 5 million each and was still a failure.
How do they make a loss on a game like Tomb Raider?
Because
that's surely something wrong with their business.
Because they spent so much making it, they oversized the budget so much they can't possibly recoup that money in sales, and then act surprised when the game does not do. The game doesn't sell as well as Call of Duty and make all the money back. Game industry sometimes, when you look at it, looks really kind of bloated. It's full of like people who see the world the way they want to see it and get pissed off when game doesn't sell like gangbusters.
I think one of the most one of the clearest examples of how microtransactions can suck away your cash is with online card games. I mean, we Alex accepted here. We haven't quite got him into Magic yet, but James, Dean, and I have played Magic: The Gathering, the computer game. And while it's possible to unlock every deck in the campaign, in the campaign mode, by playing the individual individual opponents, and each time unlocking a deck, it's also possible to go on Steam and spend 80p on unlocking that specific deck, all the cards. Now, that actually can give you a bit of an advantage if you are unlocking all the cards at once. It allows you to make a deck that can be quite strong, and also Hearthstone, Blizzard's new card game, which does have a real money shop for buying cards. And I've seen plenty of videos on YouTube of people who are playing the beta, they're getting addicted to it, and they're spending copious amounts of cash on getting that extra card that's just that bit better than the ones they're already using, which is going to give them an advantage against those they're playing against online. I do feel that's a bit much.
No, you see, with something like a card collecting game, something like Magic, for example, is based on dare I say, an IRL game, that requires you to make these transactions anyway in real life. So, if anything, surely by doing it through the game, it's actually going to be cheaper in the long run. So, I actually don't have a problem with card games and things like that, whereby you are paying a little bit more to get something new, because you'd just be doing that anyway if you were playing it with your friends with the actual deck of cards.
It's just a question of, are we talking about a situation where the players with the most literal money, like actual money, real life money in their pocket, are they the ones who are going to do best at the game?
I was hoping that it would be a sort of a more democratization of these trading card games. Let's say with when Magic 2013 was first released, you couldn't download the decks. You could download them afterwards. They released it a couple of months later, the ability to pay a bit of money and unlock the full decks. Before that, you just have to grind away. And I think for most players, we were happy with that because it was fun. We didn't mind spending hours unlocking cards because we enjoyed it. And I think it should be the same with games like Hearthstone, really, because it does seem that Blizzard has introduced something that it instills the same kind of greed, the need to get the best equipment, like they did in their real money auction house with this online shop they've got for their cards. And I would hope that the online gaming sphere would offer opportunities to get away from this.
Yeah.
How deep is your pocket?
James, you play a lot of actual like card games in real life, don't you, mate? What's your take on the whole?
I mean, you can buy whole decks, pre-made from game stores, eBay, whatever. I would say in a way there is a democratization of it, because let me get the words out. It does give people the choice. You can still grind away and get your cards, and for me, I would be perfectly happy to do that, because I'm just an obsessive collectionist in all sorts of games, doing all these little things. But then some people just kind of want to play with the full deck there, and if they want to spend a bit of money to do that, yeah, okay, not for me, but if that's what they want to do, then I guess having the option to do that is going to make them more likely to enjoy the game rather than have to grind through.
So I think what we've touched upon so far, it's games where you can pay for the extra cards. It may increase your chances of winning a little bit, but perhaps not astronomically. But it might help you along your way in enjoying the game yourself.
Well, I've just been thinking out in terms of, since we were talking about real money giving you a real benefit, what about like a real drawback of that? I mean, the things that we talked about a couple of times, playing EVE Online, which is not only a subscription-based thing, but when you hear about these massive battles that take place and people lose, entire battle fleets that are worth in the thousands of dollars.
That's crazy.
You've got to, it's not a microtransaction by any means, but if there's something, if your pocket is actually damaged in the real world, what's the impact of these games?
You've got to credit them to take it to the point of macro transactions, which
Absolutely.
is a term that I believe I may have just coined. You're welcome, Internet.
OED, here we come.
Yeah, I mean, is anybody really spending $12,000 to buy a ship in EVE? Maybe they are.
Maybe not individually, but these corporations that form that. I mean,
I've got to give the people who make EVE credit for the fact that they actually allow people to use in-game currency to buy their subscription.
Yes. Yeah,
they turn that pay-to-win stuff on its head and say, if you're good enough at the game, you can use in-game currency to buy your subscription.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you've got to have played a lot and be good at it and be a success in that game, but it does give you that opportunity. And so, in-game currency that is not on a par with, but measures up to you paying with real money, I think is the way forward. Like, you can pay 1,000 coins for the next upgrade of your character or whatever, but then if that doesn't measure up satisfactorily to real money, people are just going to pay with real money. And so that's where the cynicism comes in. Whereas if you have played the game enough and are constantly rewarded, for that, and then you can do really good things with that in-game currency, if you've got that option, I think that's a really good thing that more game developers should be getting on.
It's a tough line to tread when people are especially when people are making a free-to-play game. I mean, it's a bit different with a subscription service game, especially we hear about this with MMOs trying to ask for subscriptions and justify that. And we saw with the Old Republic, they eventually, they just couldn't keep people interested for long enough to justify the subscription and had to go free to play. But when you go free to play, you need people to like have the opportunity to buy things, but not feel like they have to. And it seems like a lot of game makers it sometimes just comes down to like the way they design the UI, just like how the interface looks when they're playing the game. If it feels like you're getting stuff barraged at you all the time, like saying buy these coins, you need to buy these items with your real money, then people feel like, well, why am I even playing the game if I'm supposed to pay money to actually do well in it? But on the other side, if they don't put that stuff on there at all, then they can't afford to make the game, and then the game disappears. It's a tough line to tread.
Yeah.
But I wanted to now that I've kind of mentioned that, when we just kind of veering off a little bit here. Blitz and Bejeweled, those kind of games, are throwing adverts at you every 2 seconds to spend more money on an extra gem or whatever they do now to improve your gaming experience or to speed things up or give you a boost or whatnot. do we sometimes feel that maybe this whole thing about you being prompted to buy stuff, is it not, for me personally anyway, the main reason I dislike it so much is because it can remove you from the gaming experience and you've automatically been pulled back into the real world. The example I've got is Dead Space 3, whereby you could buy an extra gun to make the game easier, which, you know what, if you want to do that, that's fine. Personally, I think it's a waste of time, but that's fine. But you could get to that point where you get to this station to buy guns or whatever using in-game currency.
But isn't that exactly the distinction I just made? Games where you pay for them and free-to-play games. Dead Space is a game where you've paid like £40 to £50 in our country, and they're then asking you if you want to spend a little bit more money and get something that will make the game easier. That seems a little bit less okay.
No, that is less okay. But for me, it's a case of them automatically saying, do you want to now spend real money? And then all of a sudden I've been drawn out of that gaming experience. That's the part that bothers me the most.
Isaac Clarke would not have that choice. Isaac Clarke would have to do with what is made for him. He doesn't have like a crazy benefactor, behind him, who's quite happy to donate all his hard-earned cash in order to make the Necromorpher slightly less.
And I have to say that was something that kind of put me off Dead Space 3 when I was hearing about it, because after I enjoyed Dead Space 1 and 2 so much, and I really, really liked the way they put all of the UI into the gaming world, into the fictional universe, even up to the point of having the guy's life bar on his spine.
Yeah, that was pretty.
And then they put in like adverts for DLC into it, and maybe this is a bit cynical on my part, but I just have to remember the fact that EA did the same thing with Dragon Age and put DLC quests into the real world. There's a guy with an exclamation mark above his head, just like any other quest giver. But when you go up to him, he says, "Oh, did you want to pay £6 to go and do this thing for me?"
The Sims,
and it really stinks. It really, I don't know. It all seems to come from smoke. All that smoke seems to come from the same fire for me.
Yeah, EA also responsible for the Sims 3. If you're kind of, I think even if you're not really logged onto the internet, when you're buying in-game items, they've got this new like marketplace, or they had this new marketplace, not so new anymore, where people could kind of craft and make their own ones, which is a great idea. However, the best ones weren't just like a trade thing. They were ones that basically you would pay for with Sim dollars or whatever it was they called it. But it was tokens that you had to buy on the EA Sims website with real money in order to do it. You got some free stuff by buying like the DLC packs, the expansion packs, but if you wanted a range of nice beds or whatever, again, it's and in game, if you were going to purchase these things, they would appear before the stuff, like right at the top of the list of stuff that you could buy, even if you had bought the game already. It was right there in front of your face, and you'd have to scroll past it in order to buy the stuff that you didn't have to pay real money for.
It's been shoved down your throat a little. Did you feel like it was maybe forced upon you? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Big gold border around each one saying, buy this for 80 coins or whatever.
Okay.
Tokens.
I mean, I must say it does get me in games like Battlefield when, I'm not that good at these games, to be fair. But so I get killed a lot. And when I get killed a lot, invariably, half the time I'm killed by people who are paid for a premium membership for Battlefield.
Yeah, for giving them an unfair advantage.
And I'm thinking, it's and the way they flash it up, it's almost like an advert. The way it's psychologically saying to you, because it's so big, saying premium. It's like saying someone's saying to you, if you get premium, this won't happen to you because you'll be the one doing the killing. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to spend this kind of money.
Let's keep on this anti-EA train. The Need for Speed Most Wanted that came out last year, not the first one, don't get confused. I played that on PS3, and there's Hot Wheels DLC, which sadly is not like Hot Wheels little cars that you.
Oh, that would have
put
been
on
amazing. They
plastic
should
tracks.
definitely do that.
That would have been good, Dean. No, instead, what Hot Wheels DLC is, you unlock cars in the single player by driving around the city and finding a car, and when you like get near to it, you've unlocked that car. That includes like probably about, I don't know, a fair few cars that you get with the game, but there are other cars that are available in the DLC, and when you find those, you find a DLC car in the city.
Oh, then it gives you the choice to pay more.
Yeah, it gives you the opportunity to buy it, and then it's on your map, like just staring at you. Like, there's this car there that you could buy if you paid £10. And also, when you play online, you see if somebody like wrecked your car with a DLC car, it has a nice big red logo saying, that effectively tells you got wrecked by somebody who paid for, again, what I believe was day one DLC. I could be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure it was day one DLC. So yeah, they actually, it seemed a bit egregious in Need for Speed, and in something that was otherwise like a very good game. I really enjoyed Need for Speed, but it did again kind of rankle with me, like the way they tried to force the DLC down your throat.
I mean,
we've been very negative so far.
Can we just do one more negative thing? Really negative thing. I really feel strongly about World of Tanks. I've been reading up about their premium membership.
You bloody love World of Tanks.
I've been reading up about premium membership, and if people don't know, you can basically use real money to buy to get a premium account, and then you get sort of extra gold which you can use to unlock certain aspects to the game which a normal player doesn't have access to. Now, which is absolutely fine if it's not giving you an unfair advantage. A lot of games say, like LOL, like League of Legends, if you want to unlock an extra character skin, it's asking you to pay real world money, but it's a cosmetic difference to your character. It's not changing the game mechanic at all. But in World of Tanks, you've got things like premium shells. Premium ammo is more effective than regular ammo due to higher penetration values. And
surely we have to remember that this is, in essence, it's still a free-to-play game. It needs a form of funding.
Yeah.
The game
I think exist if it doesn't have people paying for it.
But what
and
about,
I don't believe they have ads all over the place for like the US Army or anything.
Why can't they do it like League of Legends?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let's try and bring about something positive. Otherwise, this is going to be an hour of us ranting and raving about things we hate. League of Legends is the best example.
Like,
you're right. I think it is.
League of Legends, really, which I think they've really got the balance right. New characters, they do cost a lot of IP. They do cost a lot of in-game points, but they do cost a lot of riot points, which you have to pay for. But if you play the game enough, you've always got enough points to unlock the latest characters.
Incidentally, Rich, when I got my new PC, my video card came with codes for World of Tanks, which turned out to be 3 months of premium account, which I've just discovered has lapsed, and I never used it.
Is it been you that's been shooting Rich by any chance?
It has been me that has not been playing World of Tanks. Maybe I should give it another chance.
There are ways you can, games can make money in a legitimate way. There's buying a game outright is fine, everything. And I think everyone knows I love League of Legends, so I'm probably coming from a bit of a biased view. But what Rich said was right. Anything you buy is cosmetic, and anything that for example, if someone wants to buy a skin for their favorite character, they'll buy a skin. It seems more like a collectible, like you just would buy something in real life if you wanted to collect it. It seems like that kind of thing. I think that's more of a positive way of going about it, in my opinion.
Compared to like
advantage.
Hats and TF2.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a problem with that. I think collectibles.
People want to pay money for it, fair enough. I don't really understand why they would, but
but it's there if they want it, and
it funds everyone else's enjoyment. Yeah,
and it doesn't change the game any.
I think that's always a good thing. One thing I did want to talk about, which is probably going to cause some more negativity on our part, is how do we feel about subscriptions? Because
I
obviously, sorry, mate,
don't
sorry.
have a problem with them personally, but I think there's only room in the marketplace for a couple of games which are subscription based.
Are we talking about MMOs here?
MMOs mainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Most.
we've seen. I mentioned it earlier. We've seen how it went for Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars, for God's sake. What kind of franchise has like more people aware of it than Star Wars? And they couldn't justify asking for a few quid a month, more than a few quid. But you know, World of Warcraft can do it. Others can't, as far as I can tell.
I think me and James have discussed actually a lot about the upcoming Elder Scrolls Online, whereby I used to be against the idea of subscription, but part of me is willing to pay a subscription to a game that I can almost guarantee that I will fall in love with, just because I love Skyrim, you know, and I love the Elder Scrolls games as a whole. So,
well, that's a discussion for another day, because I'm still not convinced that the game they're going to release is going to be the same as a Skyrim game.
No.
They're making an MMO. I'm sorry to be cynical, but I really feel like it's going to be a lot of mirror images of World of Warcraft style fetch quests.
Maybe we should discuss that.
So that's for a discussion for another day.
Yeah, subscriptions generally, though, I personally wouldn't, because I like dabbling in games and playing little bits here and there. As soon as you start subscribing to something, you know, you in a way start to feel obliged to play it in order to justify however many pounds, dollars, yen that you're spending on it. It's you know, if you consider it a hobby again, it's something you would do regularly and keep doing it, and you know, you've got the whole social side that people meet and greet and, you know, make friends online and build up their character to level 60, 70 or whatever. And if you're going to be doing that regularly, subscription makes absolute sense. But the thing that rankles with me is that I want to pay for a game and then know that it's there for whenever I want it. I don't want to end up spending hundreds, depending on how long I'm subscribed for, maybe thousands of pounds on something that I would only play maybe a couple of times. Or even if I played regularly, I think, you know, am I getting £1,000 worth of fun entertainment?
James, what subscription is £1,000? What games are you playing?
Well, no, I mean, if it's, let's say, £10 a month, yeah, that's £120, you know, a year.
Yeah, I suppose so.
So you've been a subscriber to WoW for
you've spent thousands of pounds on that.
Spent £1,000, but if you have done that for 10 years, presumably you've been playing WoW a fair bit. At least I hope. And I mean, sounds like, James, it sounds like you're not one of their target market.
No.
And what I imagine is they're hoping to release Elder Scrolls Online with a subscription, and you know they're hoping that the player base stays there and they can justify that subscription. And if they can't, take it away and switch it to a free-to-play model and give some bonuses to the people who did join up early and pay the money. Give them in-game bonuses. This is exactly what Star Wars did, and I think quite a few others have done that have attempted to charge for a subscription and then found, oh shit, nobody wants to pay for a subscription.
Yeah. I mean, how many people do you think would pay for a number of subscription games like World of Warcraft or I'm trying to think of the others.
There's Final Fantasy 14 that's just been released.
Yeah, of
Just
course,
relaunched.
new one.
Well, new old.
Yeah.
You're only going to have one subscription.
It looks very similar to World of Warcraft. I mean, most MMOs in the end do look similar to that, to the original MMO, if you will, the one that's defined so many others. And you've got to ask yourself: is there room in the market for players to play more than one of these games, let alone pay for them on a monthly basis? I think this subscription method of paying for a game is a way of trying to keep people hooked on a game, to make them so they feel that they're actually getting their money's worth out of it.
I think what Star Wars: The Old Republic found was that they had a lot of WoW players coming over there for a month or 2 months, paying their subscription, and then going back to WoW. They didn't get people staying there for a year. which is what they needed.
I think that
Yeah, I
we
think
clearly
this is
all have
what-
quite a cynical view of the gaming industry.
Yeah, we got back to
Which
being
is-
negative very quickly. Didn't we?
I'm only basing all this on what I've heard. I mean, I hate to be a downer, but this does seem like the way it's going, at least with MMOs, a type of game that I've never played. But
I guess
I
we're
I read about them, and it does seem like there's only room for one bully in the playground, and it's World of Warcraft.
I guess we're being quite romantic in the idea that these games are produced solely to keep us happy and to engage us in a nice story and to have interesting characters that we fall in love with or we love to hate or whatever. But as a business, they've got to keep upping their game and try and keep people interested in a variety of ways. And microtransactions is one way to do that. Subscription and release regular updates that are free or of nominal cost, or there's lots of different ways of doing it. But as a business, it's not just give them some free stuff because they've been so nice and bought the game in the first place.
Yeah, I think they're
It's
busy
even
before they are.
it's more important for an MMO than any other because they spend much longer making them than any other game. I think a typical like 360 or PS3 game they spend 1.5 to 3 years making. An MMO typically takes 5 years, from what I've read on video game news websites.
And constantly ongoing stuff behind the scenes.
and obviously paying for servers and everything. It does cost a lot of money to make those games. They need to make that money back somehow. And if they're finding that people don't want to pay for a subscription, I totally understand why they want to switch to free to play and start asking for money for certain gameplay incentives. It absolutely makes sense. It's the only way that those games can continue. If it's the choice between that, between asking for money in those circumstances and the game disappearing, then it only seems one way to go, really.
What I would like to know is why MMO makers haven't introduced a kind of top-up system, a pay-as-you-go system, say, with making mobile phone calls. There's a similarity there. You pay for the number of hours you are logged onto a server and moving around doing stuff.
Which that terrifies me though. That terrifies me more than anything in the world because some people get addicted to these games whereby they're playing 12 hours a day, and that could be up there with gambling addictions if they started doing things like that.
But Dean, once you're at that point, you go for a contract.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The same.
The
same as pay-as-you-go mobiles and broadband. Remember, when we didn't have broadband and it was all dial-up, and you would literally pay, as if you'd call someone, a very, very expensive someone.
Guys, by sounds of it, I think Rich has just solved the problem of subscription payments.
Well done, Rich.
The gaming industry.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, guys.
Maybe on that note, that might actually be a good place to leave it.
Sure, yeah. Problem solved.
So
what can we score out of 10, Dean? We need to score out of 10 something.
Out of 10. Let's score out of 10 the gaming industry's general monetary policy.
Ooh.
Can we do that?
I'm going to go for a 5.
Go for 5. Okay, right. That's a 5.
Two of the points that were knocked off solely because of EA.
Wow. Okay.
Good job, EA.
Alex, you just score it.
Monetary policy. Are we talking about how much they charge for games or how much they spend on making games?
The way they go about getting money. That makes sense.
I'm gonna say a 6. Generally okay. Some outstanding travesties.
We just had a message from one of our followers. Arjun Patel asks us to score money generally out of 10. But money as a general rule is 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I'm all for money.
That
sounds horrible. Sorry, I didn't mean.
I'll just give my score.
Thanks for your offer of money. We will take 10 out of your 10 money.
Yeah, I'd give it 6 out of 10, like Alex, because there are some absolutely brilliant games out there, but there are some ones which I'm very unhappy about. So I think it's 6 out of 10 for the whole industry. I'd give it. So Yeah.
And I'd just like to say 10 out of 10 for indie games. Indie
Yes.
games continue to
Oh,
be
we didn't,
Yes.
we didn't even touch on that.
an
topic, did we?
amazing deal in almost all cases. I paid £8 for Papers, Please, and I can't remember any game I've had that much fun with for that amount of money. It's ridiculous.
And also indie games are doing a lot more of this release in alpha, release in beta, which you can buy for cheap before it goes up in price.
Early
and-
access, yeah.
Yeah,
I
early
think
access stuff.
I think this podcast needs to be followed up by another one maybe in a few months' time. By the sounds of it, because we've done a lot more to talk about.
Yeah.
If I was going to give it a
think
score
so.
out of 10, I'd probably give it. I want to be too cynical, but I'd give it a 6. I think seems like a fair score.
Yeah,
to be honest.
fit in the crowd. Fit in the crowd, coward.
I
God,
can't
you
think
guys
for
just
myself.
bloody love EA, don't you? Just forgive them all their sins.
So that was that 3 5s and a 6? I don't know. 3 6s and a 5. Sorry.
3 6s and a 5, I think. Go on, Dean. Get your calculator out.
I've just got the calculator out. Give me a sec. Yeah, 23. Right, 23 out of 40. Who scored the monetary policy
But
of the
40
game.
out of 40 for money.
Could I say it would
Yes.
have been 25 if it wasn't for EA? So let's just put that out there. Right, okay, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up there. So say goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Join us again
Everybody.
soon.